The first 10 seconds of your presentation. Your listeners decide in the first 10 seconds, should I listen to it or is it boring? Compare your presentation with a game of chess. The opening moves are decisive for your entire game. In this video, you will learn how you could lose a lot in the opening moves, and we will show you 5 openings that help you to make the most of your first seconds. Don'ts. Don'ts during the first few seconds of your presentation. Don't start your lecture, your presentation. Never start it with I. For example, I am. Don't bother with my name is Eric Wehrlin, I have the honor, I am especially pleased about the numerous shows. Whereas still, comments about the weather are forbidden in good rhetoric. No exception, please. There is no need to greet your audience if moderators and hosts have already welcomed them twice. Don't apologize. Never say you're insecure because it's the first time for you, even if it is true. In the first minute, no resume, please. No information from the program booklet. I hope everyone in your audience knows why they are sitting here in front of you. Never read your manuscript, especially during the first few minutes. Memorize it. Memorize the first few minutes. The beginning shapes, the end sticks. Never read personal feelings. Feelings read off the page are not feelings. The lectures you read are like a condom, safe and sterile. A warning, the uncertainty of the first few minutes will lead you to use filler words. Therefore, avoid filler words, fillers, especially during the first few minutes, such as right, actually, just, simply, now. Be stingy with really, certainly, maybe, possibly, you have to, of course, however. No filler sentences like, may I now just take the floor? Can you all hear me clearly? Can you all hear me clearly? Always make short sentences, which means avoiding words that and for, because. Break them into 2 sentences. Never say I'm a specialist in X and Y. I'm an expert. Your listeners will become suspicious, skeptical, critical. When you talk about your strength in the opening, please also mention your weaknesses. A hero gets bigger through his weaknesses and injuries. If you need to or want to talk about your strength, always mention your mentors. Who inspired you? Who helped you? From whom did you learn? The lone fighter is disliked. No false promises. Don't be a pessimist. Whining. I've been awake all night for my preparation. Whining is the poorest part of your lecture. So stop it. Be very careful and well versed if you open your presentation with a little joke. No punchline at the expense of others. Never say, I'm going to tell you a joke. Or even worse, never open with a long joke. Don't ever say, I'm going to tell you a story now. Or even worse, I'm telling you a true story now. If you want to start your presentation, your first seconds, with a story, with an event, always start in medias res, right in the middle of it all. Build a relationship with your listeners in the first 10 to 20 seconds. If you do not do this, then you have not made use of your opening moves in your chess game voluntarily. Do's. Build a relationship. Build a relationship with your audience. How does this work? Consider this. It's not about your presentation. It's all about conversation. Your listeners are sympathetic. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. The listeners want to enter into a dialogue with you. They don't want to listen to your monologue, even if you are brilliantly prepared. It's not about perfectionism. It's all about connecting. It's not about my perfect performance. I am not the most important person here in the room, but you, the listeners. It's not about presentation. It's all about conversation. The beginning. Don't be afraid of your personal story. Personal details connect people. This is especially true also if you have a job interview. If the listeners do not yet know you, you can introduce yourself only after 30 to 40 seconds after you have established a relationship with the listeners. For example, when you speak spontaneously, you can mention after your first few words, after 30 to 40 seconds, my name is Wehrlin, I'm from Germany, I run a medium-sized consulting firm in Stuttgart. The subject is a matter of concern to me, as I'm personally affected, etc., etc. If you have a presentation without moderation, the you, I, we presentation can be helpful. You, I, we. You are here on our YouTube channel. I am Wehrlin. In the next few minutes, we will deal with the question of how to build a relationship with the listeners in the first seconds of your presentation. Eye contact with the back rows. How do you easily establish a relationship with your listeners in the first few seconds? Immersion, interaction. One option, provoke a yes in your listeners. Immerse your audience in the topic in the first few seconds.
Imagine if you could record your life. Everything you said, everything you did, available in a perfect memory store at your fingertips. So you could go back and find memorable moments and relive them, or sift through traces of time and discover patterns in your own life that previously had gone undiscovered. Well, that's exactly the journey that my family began 5.5 years ago.
Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, you would. That's immersion. Or we parents, athletes, Christians are facing fascinating challenge. Or we engineers are always faced with a fascinating problem. Or we all face the same question over and over again. Or if we are honest, we have all asked ourselves, how is it possible that, etc., etc. Or every morning at 7 o'clock, we experience the following situation, etc. If your listeners can say a quiet or even better an audible yes, they feel understood. A relationship is established and they will gladly continue to listen to you. More examples for your first seconds. We are all faced with the same situation. We all have one big question. What we employees, co-workers, have always wanted to say to our boss, colleagues, what we always wanted to tell our partners, these are not only rhetorical questions, provoke, depending on the framework of the event, a yes, provoke answers. Or, you. What would you do, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to find yourself in such a situation, etc.? You might know this from your everyday life. You're standing on a highway, traffic jam. Suddenly you realize, etc., etc. Just imagine. Imagine it's 1 a.m. You want to drive your brand new BMW out of a public underground car park. Suddenly, etc. Each listener must answer an important question. Why should I listen to that speaker standing up front. Gladly listen. Another way to immerse your listeners in your presentation, the first few seconds, is a story. Details. Immerse with details. An example, suppose you are a nuclear physicist, you decide to start your presentation with Chernobyl. Don't tell them, I welcome you to my presentation, safety in modern nuclear power plants. Some time ago, the biggest nuclear catastrophe in the history of mankind happened in Ukraine. A reactor exploded. Start in medias res, in the middle of the matter. For example, start with details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's April the 26th, 1986, 1:30 a.m. We are in the control room of reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Nearby, the small, sleepy Ukrainian village of Pripyat. The head, Anatoly Stefanovich Dyatlov, who was on duty that night, dared, contrary to all safety regulations, an exciting experiment, etc., etc. If your name, your qualification was not mentioned in moderation, was not included in the program, you can include these details 60 seconds after such an introductory story. Your listeners are right with you. This means spoil your listeners with details. Don't start, ladies and gentlemen, I recently traveled professionally in France. No, you would better say, ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks ago I was in Paris for 3 days. Don't say, I've been removing sugar from my diet for some time now, so I've lost quite a bit of weight. It's better to say, I haven't had any sugar for 2 months. I've lost 8 pounds. If you immerse your listeners with details, you create empathy. An important rhetorical rule is mention 1. Precise locations, 2. Precise quantities, 3. Precise numbers, 4. Precise times. Mention 1. Precise locations. Baltimore is better than America. 2. Precise quantities. 8 pounds is better than quite a lot. 3. Precise numbers. I was just 7 years is better than I was young. 4. Precise times. 1:30 a.m. is better than sometime in the middle of the night. Nothing more, nothing more. Otherwise, you will easily become a steamed chatterbox, a fairy tale uncle. A good story is like a bikini, short, small, tight. A good story is like a bikini. The important parts are covered. Places, quantities, numbers, times. Nothing more.